Okay. Wait. It is 7 o'clock and Town Hall is just starting to strike. Now it's working again. Can I welcome you all to the April FES meeting? Are there any apologies?
Yes, we've got apologies from Councillor Nixon.
Do we know about Emma? Well, she may come late, she may not, I don't know. I know she does have difficulties sometimes getting out of work, and it's something that you can't avoid, isn't it? Declarations of interest, item 3. Has anyone any interest to declare? No. Before we move on to the minutes, I am mindful that there are a few people who have put their name down to speak. There's one or two here who haven't, so I haven't a clue what item they're interested in or whether they want to speak on anything or not. I assume most of you are here. I know 2 are here for item 12. Is it just item 12 that anyone wants to speak on? If it is, after the minutes and public forum, I'll bring item 12 forward if that's okay with members of the committee. Yeah? So, item 4, the minutes of the last meeting. Would someone like to move them as a correct record or not? Yes? Those in favour? Thank you. Public forum. No one wishing to speak particularly on that. You're just here for item 12, right? Just do item 6 and then we'll move on. Item 6 is just to declare that there is an item at the end of the agenda which is staffing issues, which is a private item and will be taken in private at the end of the meeting. So can we now move to item 12, which is the events budget. And can I just say before we start on this, it's not a full discussion, it's not an item for a full discussion on the events. It's actually with the intentions of if there is a shortfall on the events budget this year, this meeting is to make the decision to top it up if there is a shortfall because of any income from the rent of market spaces or anything like that, should the market system change. It's just basically to say that we'll put extra money in the budget to top up if there is a shortfall. So whichever of you wants to go first? Anissa?
Yeah, so I just wanted to settle a couple of things that were highlighted in item 12. So Colne Bid actually brought Independent Street events to Colne Area Committee meeting before Christmas actually, and it was approved to do the second Saturday of every month on the Dockeray Street car park, just so it wouldn't cause any disruption to the market. The market manager actually approached Colne Town Council before Christmas, just around the same time actually, and asked to collaborate on a makers and bakers market on the very same Saturday. So the bid actually asked to collaborate with them as well, following the 5 markets that we did in 2021 from August to December, and that was actually declined. The decision was made not to host an independent street event market and instead work on special events together. So the most recent one was the Whimsical Window Walk and Light Night on the 12th of March, and we've got more dates to be confirmed. So following the success of that actual market, I spoke to both Nathan Cutler and Stephen Reid regarding makers and bakers to see how they were doing, and they said at the time numbers were looking a little bit low. So I said if the numbers remain low for April and it's not as successful, what we can do is take over from May onwards if that works for you. A couple of days later that was declined. That's pretty much it. So I'm just not sure where the rumours started with Pendle Borough Council have got an external company to come and take over and do Pendle markets across the borough. It's just simply untrue. So I just wanted to set the record straight. Thank you.
You want to go next, Kieran?
I hate these things. I will do, Mr. Chairman. So I've come today because I'm a councillor on Pendle Borough Council, and similar to what Anissa has just touched on, point 3 in the report there, rumour has it that Pendle Borough Council are working with an outside company to deliver all markets within the Pendle area. Now, whilst I don't know all the ins and outs of Pendle Borough Council, it hasn't ever been discussed at a single meeting that I've attended within closed doors or outside of that. So again, just to reiterate what Anissa touched on there, it seems to be an untruth that I'm interested to see where it comes from. I think the work that the bid have done to generate the footfall in the markets that they've held is one thing, and it should be surely encouraged, because I think the markets that they have been holding have sort of blown the doors off everything that has been tried to be done in the town by the market themselves, and perhaps even town council. And that's not a detrimental statement. I just think they've done really well, and I think town council should embrace that and try to collaborate more with these organisations that are professional setups in what they do. So that would be my comments there. So number one, I've not heard of any meetings where there is the agenda or an item to take over the markets. It just seems to be a complete untruth, and I would encourage the town council to work closer with these people who are so successful in delivering markets.
Is this the item that Liz wants to speak on? Do you want to speak on this item 12, Liz?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No.
Oh, okay. My question really just concerns the report, because, you know, I've always been led to believe that town council officers are very badly overworked and overstretched. And rumour has it that their workload is made worse by councillors expecting them to do things like treasure our town. So I'm just a little bit mystified by the report for item 12, which is, it opens with the phrase rumour has it and continues with phrases like it is thought that, or I have been led to believe. And it just doesn't seem to me a very efficient use of our officers' time to be writing a report based on gossip and rumour. That just seems completely inappropriate to me. And I'm just puzzled. Would it not have been better to establish, and would it not have been quite easy to establish that this was in fact just a rumour, rather than waste Gina's time producing the report? That's my question.
David?
Aside from rumours and things, it's interesting to know what the source was, but I think the paper itself, we talk a lot about it's focused on the event. So never mind rumours or whatever, I'm sure we can answer those, but the thing I'm looking at is the events budget. Now, I've always wanted a big events budget, lots of events, keep everybody happy. You know, this is what the town is good at, it's what the town enjoys. I think the thing about the numbers, we've got an appendix which shows about the money we make, about 3,500 or so from all the various markets, with a little bit of sponsorship to top that up. The bit that's missing, of course, is how much it costs. Because obviously we pay Unique Clean to do things. They have a set-up cost per market, I believe, or is it per stall? I don't know. But they have a set-up cost, which obviously they bill to us, and if we didn't do the markets, we would save that money. Similarly, a lot of the promotional work and the time spent by Nathan, I'm sure, you know, it takes many hours and many days beforehand to sort of get them promoted and get them developed and develop some collateral, etc. So I think we're sort of missing half the equation there in terms of the costs. So yes, we might, if for example, if we did hand over the markets and said, look, we're a town council, let's let Independent Streets or whoever do the markets, the external markets, then we'd save all those costs. and we'd sort of refocus our time. Yes, we'd lose a small amount, sort of 3,500, 4,000 or so. But I think, you know, that would be good to stick that into an events budget and focus on what we're really good at. So that's my initial thoughts.
Which is basically what the report is suggesting. In fact, it's actually suggesting, in theory, going over and above that, because I think the figures come to, at tops, about 5,000 they could lose, and the intention is to put 10 in.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
what we're also mindful of on this is, and this is not a rumour, not hearsay or anything, it's just a fact that could happen at some time in the future. It will happen, but we don't know. As a town council, we don't know when. Whether Pendle councillors know the answer to it, I don't know. But at some point, the market car park could be lost purely because of development grounds on that side. And if that was to happen partway through a year, obviously there wouldn't be no more markets on that side. So any markets that we were anticipating doing on that side, we could lose the income from them anyway. So in the event of that happening partway through a year, it also would top that up. And we're just trying to make sure that before we start the year, which, as you know, it's annual council meetings next month, and the idea is to start off the year with a full budget. Well, it's no good starting off a full year with an events budget that may or not make it to the end of the year, and that's what the intention is with this, is to suggest and approve putting the extra 10 grand in case it's needed.
Right, okay.
Nothing else. There's no intention to remove any events that we're going to do, that we've got programmed, and or anything like that. It's just the intention to make sure there's enough money in there to do what is needed.
Right. So the idea is we spend 10 grand more on the events, but we still keep doing the markets. Or there's a sort of if this and
If there's
that.
still facility there to do the markets, yes.
Right, okay.
I mean, I'll let Gina come in now and answer it, but I don't think, and I haven't been given any inclination from either Gina or the events manager that we are going to scrap any of the events. That is not the intention. The intention is to put this extra money in so that in the eventuality of losing some income, we wouldn't need to scrap any.
Right, okay.
Generally with the events, we've had the same amount of budget for quite a few years. However, the events officers at the time have endeavoured to try and get more sponsorship, try and get more income, so that the extra income could be spent on the event to enhance the event and make it better. This report was purely that if that is taken away, if we lose some of the markets because work's being done or whatever, we can't do it on that car park, then it is purely just so that we have enough money to actually do the events that have already been agreed by the events committee. The events schedule's already gone out, and the budget's already been agreed. However, being that any funding is limited and has to be spent by, I think it is it the 31st of March 2024, then it's likely that things may happen sooner than we think. So if in an event we can't do all the markets that we've scheduled or all the events, then this is to make sure that we have enough money to do a full event schedule.
Sarah?
I'd like to give a little bit of background before I sort of address the main thrust of the paper. When I was head of events, I set up the nursery markets in Cone. And the point of them was for people who were local, who perhaps had a hobby, could have been baking, could have been craft, could have been making birthday cards, could have been woodcraft to dip their toes in the water and set up little businesses. And one of the little businesses that was set up, which I'm sure you've all heard of now, was Farah's Asian Treats. Another one was Jackie Stansfield and her baking. And they came about, it was more of an incubator for business. And then I became chairman of the town council and Ash took over as head of events. And he said, oh, Sarah, it's a nightmare getting all these tables down and trying to get people under the cover of the canopy. What we should do is invest in infrastructure. So Ash bought, I don't know, a dozen or more markets, and we found them really easy to fill. We just basically hustled and found lots of local people to come and put on everything from wax melts to, I don't know, handmade jewellery. In fact, the people who were in Funky Gifts, they sold jewellery on the nursery markets. So then they were very, very cheap to put on in those days because we did all the erection and disassembly, so there was no cost to the council. So all the costs from all the money from the markets, I charged them £15 a pop, just these sort of people who were dipping their toes in the water. All of that was spent on entertainment on the same day. So they became successful. So after a while, they said, not call it nursery market, let's just call it Cone Markets. So really, it's a very sort of elastic umbrella term. It could be anything market. And I am really pro-markets. So just to dovetail in with what Anissa had to say, it was agreed by Pendle Council that future markets during the levelling up investment would move primarily to the Dockeray Street car park next to the Red Lion. And that makes sense because if you've got a construction site, what you absolutely don't want to do is put people off. You want to give them a reason to visit. So I think that's what we need to do. Keep the footfall in the town at a time when there's enormous change. And I know that the plans are afoot to create an environment whereby indoor traders can carry on trading, probably from that site as well. Mary then rang me up about this rumour, and I was amazed by the rumour on which this paper has been predicated, because it just seems bizarre that Pendle Council should outsource all its markets to one firm. It seems amazing, and is certainly absolutely not the case. So I was happy to scotch the rumour that Mary presented me with. You could say some people believe the moon landings never took place. Other people believe that Princess Di was bumped off by the CIA or MI6. I have sometimes wondered whether Cone Town Council is really run from Barnoldswick. But I think probably all these rumours aren't true. And the rumour put in this paper isn't true. There was a slight heckle, but actually I've just said it's not true in this paper. And I'm glad I was able to scotch it with Mary. In fact, Independent Street pay some money towards Pendle Council, which is spent on street entertainment. So it's very much a similar model to how the money used to work with the nursery markets. And I think that really works. If you've got a bit of cash, I think that should be spent on makeup artists or stilt walkers or free balloons or whatever it is. I think it's a shame that Cone Town Council currently doesn't use a volunteer base to put up and disassemble the gazebos, because that way more of the profit could be siphoned into the event. So the paper is gloomy, and it comes from a position of peddling this rumour, whereas in fact what it should be doing is building on what we've got and trying to diversify the offer at a time when the government is investing in the centre of our town millions and millions of pounds. So it's actually really positive. And I have often argued for the events budget to be doubled, and some of the people in this room have voted against that, because it is ridiculous that you've got a council that brings in, I don't know, £500,000 a year more, and its events budget, albeit we've got a part-time events officer, is just 20 grand, which is less than most people would spend on their weddings, and the council made £100,000 surplus last year. So to me, it absolutely makes sense, not just to add £10,000 to it, but to double it. I don't think that you should see the markets as money-making vectors, more as ways to channel footfall in the town, to entertain people. They're not ways to make money so much as to drive income and prosperity and enjoyment, to give a raison d'etre to our town centre. That is really, I think, what Combe Town Council's about, to make us have a successful and happy and vibrant town. It doesn't really matter about the income. I think it is quite easy to get a small income, but that income should be channeled into other good things. So I think the raison d'etre behind the paper, oh, we're not going to make any money from markets, is unnecessarily gloomy. There are loads of things that you could do. You could do decade-themed 1970s market, vintage markets. You could do mod markets, rocker markets, 1980s, flea markets. You could do weirdy collections. You're massively into comic book things that I don't even understand. There are loads and loads of different markets. And if you go around other towns like Hebden Bridge, you see that they have all of this steampunk, craft, all of that. We don't have to be hung up on whether it's people who make artisan sausages. You just have to give people a reason to visit the town. The one sort of sentence that is true in this is that I said to Gina, yes, we need to have a reason, a different thing on every week. That's not a bad thing. It's not in competition with Combe Town Council. We're lucky that we've got a bid as an adjunct to sort of drive more things, to do more things. So for example, I know that the Combe bid is going to run a market on the Sunday of the Combe Blues. And that's just like an extra thing. Combe Town Council doesn't need to organise it, working together. And that's what we need to see more of. So I would like to really propose that we don't just add £10,000 to the budget, we double, we perhaps go to 50 grand, which is a nice round figure, and really try in this couple of years post-COVID, and I'm touching wood when I'm saying post-COVID, we try to make the town really fly. You know, it shouldn't just be, oh, there's only going to be one market a month. There should be loads of markets. There should be 4 or 5 markets a month, depending how many Saturdays there are. Cone is a market town. Our neighbourhood plan says Cone is a market town. So I hope that the councillors can see that, not feel that they're being put in any kind of competition, but feel they're part of people working together to provide these markets for Cone.
Before I bring Councillor Thomas in, Sarah, I think some of what you've just said is total and utter rubbish. In particular, the fact that you said that we're expecting to get a profit out of the markets. We're never going to get a profit out of the markets. No one is. And I don't think anyone expects to do. The events budget has a particular budget, but on top of that, any income they do get is extra money they can spend on events. So let's say there's 20 grand in budget, and they had an income from market stalls or whatever of 5 grand, they'd have 25 grand to spend. All we're trying to do is we think there's a chance that some of the income may be lost this year. It may not be, but it may well be lost. And all we're trying to do is put some extra money in so that they still have enough money to do all the events that they've programmed into the events budget to start with. That's all we're trying to do. And a lot of what you're saying, Sarah, is utter rubbish. Councillor Thomas.
I wonder what's coming up in a few weeks. Rubbish, yes. I mean, to say that everything that Combe Town Council does is sent from Bali, what a load of... that's something that I'm not allowed to say.
True.
It's not true, and you know it, Ash. You know it's not true.
It wasn't Ash, and if he makes another mark like that again, he will leave the room. Carry on. I said it wasn't Ash.
Oh, it wasn't?
No, it wasn't Ash.
Sorry, I apologise.
Chairman, just highlight that your own councillor did interrupt a speech as well. You didn't make the same statement to your own councillor. Thank you.
Carry on.
And it's funny that the idea of suddenly putting it up to 50 grand because we should be doing lots of events was never mentioned at budget time. We could have had that discussion then. It could have been 50 grand, 75 grand, 100,000, whatever, but nothing was put on the table. And we quite often get remarks from members of Sarah's party about we should sweat the assets a bit and make more money out of Primmett Community Centre. We should base the weddings on charge lots more to them. I'm not sure that there are many people in Cone spend £20,000 on their weddings. Maybe they do in some parts of Cone, but certainly in the majority of Cone, they don't spend £20,000 on their weddings, which is one of the reasons that Cone Town Hall, when promoting its weddings, promotes it so that as a more affordable venue for people to have their weddings in nice surroundings. We hear lots of talk of the redevelopment of the market and the area around it, but it all comes out in bits and pieces and bits of a thing here. At the neighbourhood plan meeting, we were told, I think it was 37 flats would be included at, and someone else has told me that they're going to be based at around £150,000 each, so they're for local people, aren't they? If there are lots of these little ideas go on and plans do, that people in Cone will start to want to know what is going to go on the marketplace and the bus station and know what's there. And there is no, there are no plans mooted. There are lots of rumours going around that the police station, when they eventually get round to building their super police station at on Carr Road in Nelson, what will that turn into? Will it be knocked down? Will it be turned into the market? Will it be flats? Who knows? But these are rumours that if you care to search the more exciting parts of Facebook, you find these rumours floating around. So, let's talk about real things. These rumours don't start from thin air. They start because people post things on social media that they're wandering around markets around the north and beyond to look at what markets we can do. But it's all very nebulous and just little hint here and a little hint there. Let's have some look at some of the plans that are being suggested for the market and bus station, but none seem to come forward. The town council has been, I think, deliberately excluded from any discussions on that. And yes, we can work together. There's no problem there. But where was it that the Cone Area Committee talked about having markets on, well, what's actually called the Red Lion car park in most descriptions. If there's a market on there, at the same time as we were having a market on Parliament Street, where's anybody going to park? Where are people going to park when the building works start and the Red Lion car park is the home to these super duper markets and the existing people in the market hall? Where's the market cafe going to go? I'm sure they can't work out of a porter cabin or a super duper marquee or whatever is planned for it. But again, it's just there'll be something, not we're going to do this, we're going to build something temporary. So this is how rumours start, when only a bit of the story creeps out and people then add a bit to it. We've spent more than enough time on an item that probably doesn't deserve the amount of time that we've spent on it. So I'm quite happy, turn the wrong piece of paper over, to move the recommendation that if we need to, we move the £10,000 into the events budget, and it's a lot of fuss about nothing, Chair.
Is that seconded? Yeah. David?
Unfortunately, the maths, I think, of 20 grand budget plus 5 grand income from the market to give 25 grand to spend doesn't work then, because of course you've got 3, 4, 5 grand's worth of costs as well. So, you know, you need clean to it stuff, the marketing, etc., etc. So you end up with the same 20 you first thought of. We do have a large surplus this year. I'm pleased to see, you know, we've budgeted carefully, and obviously we've been thwarted on various things as well. Events budget, I noticed, went from 30 down to 20 down to 15, because obviously things got postponed or cancelled. So, you know, we have the 100 grand surplus to use. I noticed there's another item on the agenda talking about extra equipment for the lensman, a nice electric van there. So that's a fairly hefty investment there we're prepared to make. So I would support more than 10,000 for the events. If we're really going to come out of COVID smiling and partying, that's what we should do. Let's get the spirits up. And if part of that as well includes recognising Cone's market town status and the idea that we should have a market every week, if possible, and if the Cone bid can organise that and the independent street lot can do it, and if Cone Town Council has a part to play, then fine. I'm sure Nathan doesn't want to do a market every single week, but let's leave it to the specialists, for example. So I think there's plenty of things we do there. We are lucky to have a bid. We are the only town in the whole of Pendle, only area, whatever, that actually has a bid, and therefore it does an awful lot for this town. You know, it really promotes it. It punches well above its weight and delivers a lot more, you know, innovative activities, engagement with stakeholders, etc. That's why our town centre is much better than the problems they're having in Nelson, where they're redesigning it again with another pot of money, and Barlick and other towns and villages which are a lot smaller and a bit quieter. You know, this one's buzzing. Let's keep it like that. Let's support it in many ways as possible. Support the bid, collaborate as far as possible with, as a town council, with the bid and with these other interested parties who are prepared to come here because they see it's good. You know, and if we go on, or I didn't go, but if you go on market study trips to see how really top-notch markets do it, that's how you learn. You know, we keep being told by the leader of Pendle Council, if they're going to transform how they work to be able to support their budget, that's not a problem we as Cone Town Council have. But if Pendle's going to sort out its budget, it needs to learn lessons from how other councils do things in order to be able to change and do things differently. They have to have step changes. I think what we've got is a good, simple, iterative expansion of the way we offer markets and the way we offer events as well. I don't know what the events programme is for the year and whether it's within the 20 grand, but if there are things in there that were considered that have been postponed or put on the back burner in case we might have some money here and there, let's think about doing those. if we can do that for 10 grand, fine. If we can do it for 20 grand, let's do that. Let's think about the events to really make the town buzz and really go for it. I think as a paper, just picking up on one or two things, I think the whole discussion about markets is almost like a red herring in this. If we want to just talk about the events and say, let's add some budget to the events, then yes, focus on that. But, you know, clouding the issue with market rumours, etc., was not the right way to approach it. So I would support the recommendations, but I would suggest even higher.
There are no events that have been put on back burner.
Okay.
In fact, the events committee have sort of said what their preferred programme would be for this year, and the money is in the budget for it. And it does include some income. And this, as I've said, is basically to try and secure that income. So if it's not there, they've still got it anyway, they won't lose it.
One quick factual, Chairman, if I may, a quick factual question.
But just a minute, well, okay. I've finished. But a lot of what you've said, I agree with. And I don't want to have an argument with people sat over at this side. And I particularly don't want to have an argument with Anissa from BID, because I've nothing against Anissa, and I've known her quite a number of years, and I think we've always got on relatively okay. But what I think is, in a sense, some of what you've said is true. Colne is fortunate in that it has two bodies within the town. And without jumping on anyone's toes on either side, including the town council side, I honestly think it's about time we started working together, both bodies, rather than against one another. And in some instances in past, it does seem as though sometimes, and I'm not blaming any side or the other, it does seem that they haven't worked together when they could have done. And I'll say no more than that. And I think it's better if we work together. And if the BID want to put some markets, etc., on certain weeks, and if we want to put some on certain weeks, and between us we can put more events on, all well and good. But let's work together on it rather than against one another. And I'll say no more than bring David back in now.
It was just a quick factual question about, in the events budget, we've obviously got the blues in there. Has all that sorted out in terms of...
It's not in there. Separate.
Right. Okay.
Totally separate.
So that's a totally separate budget. Okay.
In fact, what I'm not sure of, and we'll clarify it now, because I'll ask Gina, and I'm not 100% whether it is or not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the Queen's Jubilee's in there, or whether it's a separate item or not. Well, she can answer it for you.
Tell us what we're doing.
Yeah, no, the Jubilee is included within that events budget.
And we found on the budget the trouble sentences? So was that folded last night, talking about beacons and bonfires and singing this and parades, that and everything? I just thought, what are we doing?
You'd need to ask your events officer, who knows more details than I do.
The Queen's Jubilee was doing on Thursday the 2nd of June. We're doing a circus workshop where you'll have workshops for an hour long, and you'll have 4 of these throughout the day, where children can learn circus skills. That's going to be free for people to take part in. We've got still walking teachers that are going to walk around for, there's going to be like half-an-hour slots, 4 times or so, and they'll hand out like hand slides and balloons. We've got the traditional fairground ride books, so we've got like swing boats, that sort of stuff. We've got club brass bands booked, we've got choir book, and we're still looking at what other stuff we can book to put on other events for the Jubilee.
Have we got a big fire or not?
No.
No, right. So we were debating long and hard over last night about where to put it, where's it to do, etc. Gas fired, wood powered, etc. And you've also got to do a song and everything.
I think so.
There's an anthem somebody has to sing, or a group of people have to sing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right, thank you. Okay, no more questions.
Not that. Sarah. And then we'll put it to the vote.
So with regard to rumour and the market, there really genuinely isn't any. All the borough councillors were invited to see the very first iteration of the plans for the market just before Christmas. And Dorothy Lord replied that she would definitely be coming, and sadly she didn't come. But we have now moved on. We've all put our two penneth in about these plans. And so Philip Moosdale has worked on a new forum, a market forum, that's going to discuss the future, including the logistics of how the market will be managed during its transition period. The first meeting of that is the 25th of April. One member of this council, apart from the people who are already attending it, the 3 borough councillors attending it will be Ash, myself and Dorothy, and one representative from the bid, as well as market traders and perhaps some other interested groups, as well as the developers, as well as Julie Whitaker from Pendle Council. They'll all be coming to this, and it will be looking at the current iteration of plans and just talking about all the things that need to be worked up. I'm not ashamed of going to see markets, good and bad, all over the northwest and even the northeast, and I plan to go and see more. It is really clear to me what pitfalls, we've spoken to market operators, what things we need to avoid, and what things we need to embrace and encourage. And these are the kinds of things that we will bring to the market forum, and we've been sharing those with officers as well, and they've been speaking to the officers of the successful councils that have successful markets, and I'm really pleased with the way that it's progressed. The money from the Levelling Up Fund has to be spent in very swift order, so we need to be cracking on with this. There hasn't been any obfuscation or any need for any rumour mill at all. It is a thing that is evolving. This paper, though, trades rumours. The actual third paragraph says rumour has it, and I think that's mainly why I'm here. And paragraph 10 says I've been led to believe. No, this could easily have been put to bed. I told Mary about it when she called me and did so. So in fact, as David says, the actual reason for this money is nothing to do with markets. It's to do with trying to be ambitious for the town and to try and put on events within the town. There's plenty of opportunity for Colne Town Council to put on town council events and to go for sponsorship far and wide. And I think there are loads of things that haven't been tapped into yet. I don't think you'd go far wrong of starting off in business markets or vintage markets, or I think at the moment the farmers market in Colne is very, very underdeveloped. We have lots of opportunity and we should be grasping it. I've always, apart from this year, raised that we spend more money on events and spend money on playgrounds, but I wasn't at the meeting this year to put my 2 penneth in about events. I do think that it's a thing that is important for this council.
Just a minute, Brian.
When I initially read this report, I did feel very uncomfortable reading the words rumour and I'm led to believe. And I hope that we don't have these sort of words in any other reports as long as I'm on the council.
Can I propose an amendment to the recommendation, just to simplify it then, and just say we agree to increase the events budget by at least £10,000, full stop. Don't have any references to markets or anything like that. Keep it simple. That's my proposed amendment.
Is that acceptable? But if there is any income comes in, I think that should stay there anyway and not be deducted from the 10 grand. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think he'd ever do it, but if Nathan went away and he come back with sort of another 30 grand sponsorship, well, all well and good. I'll go along with what you want the amendment, but it is the 10 grand added to it, not up to 10 grand. It is the 10 grand. Are you happy with that as the mover, Howard? Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. Going back to the agenda, item 7, financial update.
Just got one question across all the papers. Obviously, we keep talking about a surplus of 100,000. I think my reading of the paper is obviously the actual spend column of 605 and the actual income of 728 give us the current surplus. We've still got commitments of the 64,000 in there. So are we really going to spend that in the next couple of days, or bits of it perhaps? And then we sort of end up nearer the 100,000 overall then? Is that the plan?
I'm not sure what we've either ordered or received and not got the bill yet, and it's not been paid. I don't know.
No, okay.
Gina can answer that possibly.
I mean, the biggest number is the town hall again, of course. Extra 25,000 committed there, but if that's going to roll into next year, then obviously we know where our surplus can be applied.
But you know what some businesses are like, some want paying up front and some are 5 or 6 weeks and later sending billing, aren't they? So
yeah, true.
Yeah, with the town hall, it is for obviously the last rooms that we added in. Some of the work has been completed. Obviously, the projects haven't been completed, so they will be carried forward through.
Do any of the categories up above where percentage spends are relatively low or lower than 70, 80, 90% or whatever, are any of those causing us to reflect a bit on the budget numbers we've got in for next year? Either because plans have changed or because we're definitely, we are going to spend the money, we're just behind on spending it. Are there any things we need to think about to move around in the budget?
I think one thing we've got to watch on 3-year plan is that's why we've a little bit more leeway in the current year we've just gone into, is I think it's next year, the middle year, is the one with a fairly high spend into it. And one of the reasons for that is because it's the year there'll be the all-out elections for town, so there's elections for town council. But that year seems to have more spend in it, but we cushioned it out over 3 years, didn't we? Yeah.
It's just one to be aware of, I guess, as we start to get into the new year. If there are things, as David points out, that get delayed with people sending us invoices or whatever, as we close off our numbers, then we know we've got the surplus, we've got the earmarked reserves, so we can use those to allocate across the various things that either underspend or play catch up. So, yeah. But yeah, I've got no other comments on that, so I'll move we note them or accept
I'm hoping the figures are not far away now, because what is it, 5th now? We've only 15 days, and auditors are coming in, aren't they? So they can't be far away now, otherwise we've got a real problem.
Speedy.
Howard? Ask a question. In the column where it says the percentage spend, is that the percentage of the actual against the budget, or the actual and the commitment against the budget?
It's just the actual against the budget.
Because
so
what I had to look at, I can't remember which one it was now, spotted. You look at the actual including the commitment, it's more like 80, 90%, 50% or whatever it is. So that in a way is a bit, it's not as percentages aren't as bad as the first look when you check what's already been.
No.
Well, that's what it was.
Well, what is deceiving throughout the year with the percentage figure, I don't usually take a right lot of notice of it for a couple of simple reasons. As you're working through the year, some of them are a bit hit and miss because certain things, such as salaries, you can take that as a fairly accurate percentage figure throughout the year because it's paid monthly. Some things are paid, quarterly, half yearly, or even yearly. And in 1 month, you can have spent the whole of the year's allocation, and it looks as though you've spent up by May. Well, yeah, exactly.
I guess as well, we've got things like Alkin coats and the allotments, where there's a lot of springtime and summertime spending.
Yes.
So, they sort of came in under budget there. So I guess some of the spring plans are possibly delayed. I don't know.
And electric and gas will go at winter, won't it?
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Well, there are certain things, that are like that.
Okay. But yeah, I move we accept the papers.
Seconded. Those in favour? Thank you. Item 8. Vehicle provision. Has anyone had a good read at it and thought of things that why we should consider it appropriately, or whether we shouldn't? Because it does take a bit of getting your head round actually to find out which is the best way forward. Howard.
Yeah, I when I first just read the vehicle provision, just said vehicle provision, I thought, oh, hey up, this is a bit, do we really need it? But then, like you say, when you actually go through it, it's not just as straightforward as do we, don't we? I hope somebody checked the lensman's insurance, that he was insured for business use or whatever the phrase is.
Yeah, I was going to say all staff have business use on their insurance.
Can I ask who pays for that?
They do. The staff pay for their own. We don't give them any concession to it at all.
I suspect from when I did it, it isn't actually that much on a policy.
I don't think it is actually.
You're talking of, I don't know, maybe £5 a year. That's that sort of. As I say, it's a while since I paid for it, but also the question of we borrow in inverted commas from a contractor. I know Naomi was particularly good at twisting people's arms and calling in favours and what have you. That's not a criticism of, but I think, maybe the time has come that we should look at I've seen I like the way it's called an ATV now. I thought it was just a quad bike, yeah. Going up and down Alkin coats, and I assume that what they've got in it is more or less what the limit is. In fact, I saw it last week when it was outside here, and I think then it probably wasn't. It was at the limit of what it could carry. I think it's fine for knocking round and up and down and doing the watering and all the rest of it. But actually moving, if we were to take over, I hate to go back to markets, but if we were to take over putting gazebos up, we'd be all day putting, you know, you'd have to start about 6 o'clock in the morning and bring up 3 at a time. So I think we probably do need to look at some extra. I mean, I don't know what size we're talking at. I mean, presumably we're talking of a small transit van or a small panel van, not a.
We were actually looking at the long wheelbase vans.
I think if we can, we should fly the flag and go electric. I'm not suggesting we should spend 55 grand on a brand new electric vehicle. But there are no figures in here for if we were to lease one from somewhere, which may, I have no idea how much it would cost, but it may prove cheaper than buying one. I think if we had a fleet of vehicles, there comes a do we, don't we? But I just wondered if we'd done any figures on what it would be to, because you can lease second-hand ones as well. I just wondered if we'd done any sums on what that would work out at.
I don't think we had. I think Nathan approached people who said that they could do lease agreements if that's what we wanted. This was mainly just to see if the committee approved that we actually invest in a vehicle for the Lensman.
Some of the things at the minute that are a little bit of a problem is if it's a wet day like today, you're restricted if it's something that doesn't really want to be getting wet as to moving it about when you've got a quad bike and a trailer. You can't sort of get a lot of our gazebos in, even if you had an event in town centre or you had it on Old House or you had it in Alcott, wherever you had it, you can't get all the gear in the quad bike at one trip. We need a van at least, you know, the size of the long wheelbase transit, I think, because if the lensmen need to go to B&Q or Screwfix or Jewson's or wherever for some wood or whatever, they don't want to be having to saw wood in half to get it in a vehicle, do they? You know, so you need to be able to get into your vehicle what you want to go and pick up. And one thing that would be a saving, I don't know how much it would be because I haven't worked it out or asked Gina to work it out, but if we did have a own vehicle, we would no longer be paying mileage allowance for them using their own vehicle because they'd use the council's vehicle. So that side of it might work out cheaper. And I don't think you can expect people to, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's never said anything about it, but one of our employees uses his own vehicle all the time. And he drags stuff up and down park and all over in his own vehicle. And I know we're paying him mileage allowance, but I think there is a limit as to what we should expect them to provide in wear and tear on their own vehicle. And I think the way forward is to get one. I'm not suggesting for a minute that we should pay 50 grand on one, because I think that would be seen when there's other things we want to do. I don't think we should be buying anything more than something that's essential. Because if with that sort of money to throw away on an electric one, I think we ought to be doing council roof earlier rather than later. David, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think just following up Howard's thing, I think the idea of having a cost versus of purchase versus lease, I think consideration is probably a good idea because there are bound to be deals. People are keen to move vans, etc. I think 34 for a 1,000 mile one is a good deal compared to the full price of a brand new one. Do we still qualify for the grant, the government grant on the charging point, if it's second hand? No. Right. Okay, so the question is then, do we know what the cost is of installing a charging point? I know when I had a hybrid one, I just plugged it into the normal plug and left it overnight. Its range was only 30 miles, but that was enough to get me to and from a short trip the following day.
Well,
so
in the immediate future, do we need a charging point? Because there's 6 out there that are usually empty.
Well, that's true, yeah.
I don't know.
Range of a transit van type size? Couple 100 miles?
It's not going to go that far, is it?
I don't know. If it's fully electric.
No, I mean, we're not going to want to go
No, exactly. That's what I mean. So in a sense, you could be charging it once every 3 or 4 or 5 days, perhaps.
And then charge
once a week even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever occurs your partner is round figures 300 quid, that's an electric. 800,000 kilowatt hour, 50k.
Sounds powerful.
No idea what.
Yeah. Well, go faster stripes as well, perhaps. But yes, we've got to consider other bits like, estimating maintenance costs, leases, you can get that built into the price, insurance as well. We're insuring that van compared to paying his insurance. So there's 1 or 2 little numbers to work into the options there. But I would support that we go for the 34,000 type level, investigate cost versus lease, see what options there are there, and then have a look at the various on costs associated with it in terms of maintenance, charging socket, etc.
Is there a great urgency to do it? I would think, is there? No. Can we have can we delay it for a month and bring some costs to compare leases and purchasing it outright at next meeting, which is 4 weeks off, isn't it?
I'm sure the company will do the comparison.
Can we do that? Or do we need to get one next week?
Well, I know we're losing the use of Mark's vehicle, so whether they will be struggling in the next 4 weeks, I'm not actually sure what they've got planned in. But they won't be able to do.
Well, short term, we could hire one if we had to, couldn't we?
Yes, I think we can ask the company to give us the sums and do the hard work for us, and then we can decide next time quite easily, I would imagine. We're all heading in the right direction.
If we're going to bring it back, there's something else that needs. What sort of vehicle are you thinking of going for at 30 grand? I take it that's only a petrol one.
No, that was an electric one. Can we make a decision on whether we want to go for electric or a petrol? Well, there's going to be diesel, aren't there, vans?
Well, I have a question, but I don't know whether I want to ask it in an open meeting.
That's my question.
Brian.
I'm fully in agreement and support purchasing some sort of vehicle, but it's the storage at Primmett Community Centre that worries me slightly, because I think I'm not sure, but I think when they did it up and re-leaded the roof, it was stolen maybe the week after, so I don't know how safe it would be from vandalism by parking it up there.
CCTV outside all around now.
Stop them.
No, it doesn't. That is the question I was going to ask. Yeah, oh yeah. The only trouble with keeping an electric one there, you wouldn't be able to charge it up overnight when it's not being used. Unless you put a charger in down there.
I think we're all going in the general direction that, I mean, I think what we need is the cost of putting a charging point in, which is whatever it is, which will be whatever it is, how much it is if we know it's around 34,000, but how does that compare to probably petrol nowadays rather than diesel, because they're allegedly mucky. Says someone who, up until last car has always had diesels for the last years. And we've then got all the sums we can play with. As David says, if we go to, well, yeah, there's these Fishwicks and these Doodad Excelsior, because they do vans as well, don't they?
So when they parked the police car down by Plymouth Bridge last year, down by the Crown, they set it on fire, didn't they? They don't care.
So how do we want to move forward with it? I think there's a general, can we just make sure there's a general consensus that the Town Council should move forward and get a vehicle? Yes. Yeah? Is there a general consensus we should be going for a petrol or an electric? Which?
I think we should go for electric if we can get electric, else it'll be on common talk that stuff.
So
you get some good VR as well. Even if it's a hybrid, it's a start.
the thing I'm trying to be mindful of, if we get a load of figures, so that we've got all the figures in front of us, which I agree is what we want, if we take it to full council in a fortnight, I think by the time all 17 of us have got us head round it, it'll be beyond midnight and we won't have done the rest of the agenda. So I can't see any option but to wait 4 weeks.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you can ring.
Well, can I move then that we have the figures for the next meeting, a comparison of an electric one for buying it outright, leasing it, whatever, so that we can do a comparison. And second part of that, in the meantime, if we need a vehicle urgently for something, Gina will have to, on behalf of the council, will have to hire one. End of. So you don't need to come back for authority to hire one. If we need a van, until we've sorted out getting one, you will have to hire one. And I'll move that. So that covers the delay, doesn't it? And if for Easter event, if you need a van, we'll just have to hire one, won't we? Yeah? Well, if he knows we're going to buy one off him, or lease one off him at some stage, he might do us a deal on hiring one. I don't know. I mean, then we can, say, well, not that the town council's done their bit, but we have made a step towards trying to be more eco-friendly, an eco-friendly council by getting one, can't we?
So do we have a seconder for that?
Those in favour? Right. Allotment write-off. Seeing as it's getting late already, can I move something and then you can decide whether you want to second it or not? I'll move that we do write these amounts off, but we keep a record of it, and if the said person should ever put their name on the list to have an allotment again, they will not be given an allotment until they've straightened the account off.
My only question was, have they actually gone? As in, not left the allotment, but they've gone for the town.
At least one of them has moved out of the area. The other one, I think it was for health reasons, so not.
And how do we stop it in the future then? People who owe me some money, which bills don't come in that quickly, for example, some of these things. Do we take a deposit from them? For damage, costs, things that they like do when you rent a house, that, whatever?
I think it's water charges, isn't it?
It is.
Hmm. You mean like a bond sort of thing?
Not for the allotment.
No. No.
What if they trash the place and knock down the fence and then disappear?
I think for 30 quid, it's not worth
No, it isn't.
the keeping of the record of
Yeah.
deposits and everything would cost more than
It isn't, but
anything.
the reason why I added that bit up end were I don't think they should ever be able to come back and have another one unless they pay that off.
Perhaps we should look as well at the financial regs that for, up to £100, it could be written off and then reported rather than, mind you, we don't have, this is the first one I can remember, so perhaps we don't have many that.
We don't have many. It is mainly because usually we're quite successful in getting the money in, but it's just simply because they've moved out of the area or so.
All those in favour? Thank you. Are we ever going to get to the end of this agenda? Item 10, IT provision. And this is probably worse than the last two.
What are the breaches that happen in WhatsApp? Because I've not seen, apart from a few dodgy emails from there, I've not seen any over the last 3 months. But obviously there's been lots in the last 2 weeks. What sort of things are there?
When we've seen them, they look to be legit emails, basically. They look to have come from, and it's contractors that we work with, so it's come from their email addresses. But then there's also been one sent out from Nathan's email address, I think. But they're very sophisticated in that the ones that we've seen previously in the past have been like they've come from some kind of generic like executive at blah, 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 or whatever. And then if you actually look carefully at the email and where it's actually come from, there's usually some foreign address in there somewhere, which you can obviously tell. But these were, a lot more professional. It's basically Holker has seen a lot more recently, since the Russian invasion of the Ukraine.
I mean, I support advancing this because obviously we are a cycle risk, the Russians are nasty people, some of their supporters are, but I think, is it one of those ones where you then, because we get text now, don't we, when we log in, so is this one of those ones where you've got the authenticator app? Is it one of those?
It is basically, they put it onto my phone just to show me obviously what it was, and it basically gives you a message saying that someone's tried to access. Is this you? Do you approve it? So there's approve or cancel, and basically you have to physically approve it in order to get in, but it will do this every time you log on somewhere different, rather than it just being every 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is that we have now.
And you get them saying, "You sure it's you?" Or send 2 messages coming in rather than 1.
Yeah, well, I think it's just the one message. I don't think it sends you a code anymore. It's just, or it may do it. Yeah, initially maybe the first time it gives you a code, but then again it just asks you whether to approve it or not.
If you're at work and you log on, first time you log on, you get the message, you say, okay, so every time after that, it won't you log on. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it won't. If it recognises the IP address, it won't ask you again.
If you got it put on your computer, initially when you log on at home, it will ask you, and then it will know your locality and it'll know your machine. If you come and do it here, it'll ask you again. But if you come here again the day after, it will not ask you. Because I don't use my laptop and my tablet in several different places. I do, but they're the same places all the time. And I don't know how often you get, when David's mentioned getting text sent, with the coding that you put in. I very rarely get them. In fact, I haven't had one this year. But I nearly always use my computer in the same places. It's when you start using it in different places.
Depends what it is as well.
If you log on to Wi-Fi when you're travelling on train or something like that, it'll probably query it.
Yeah.
Or at a cafe on services or something like that, it would probably query it. But if you're here or at home, or if I'm at Lloyd Street School, for instance, and I log on there, it don't query it. Might query it on your phone every time you go past a transmitter and go on to the next one because your IP address will change. I don't know. Then it might be a nuisance. My only concern with it is, and I think we do need to move forward with it, else we'll get left behind and we'll be the mug who is getting hacked all the time because everyone else apart from us will have security. So I think we do need to move ahead with it. But my concern is, and we can take it from our group and from yours equally the same, I think there are a few people on both groups who would struggle getting their head round how to do it. And I'm not going to mention no names. I think we all know who we mean. And it's not a political thing, but there are people on the council who struggle with technology, and they will struggle even more with this. Well,
possibly with training, I said we put on 1 page briefing notes. If you see this, don't do this. If you see that, don't do this. Rather than just keep it nice and simple to help us understand what to look out for and how to make this a new system.
They did actually say that if we're going to take this to full council, that he would actually come
he'll come and talk
to talk to everyone about it.
But there are people, on both groups who would need a little bit of support with it. Because there are people, and I know they've been to Nathan and they've been to other council staff, if they get a new phone or something, they need to bring it in here to get it set up, I think, because they don't know how to do it. So such people as them are going to struggle with it initially, and they'll need some support.
Should also check computer antivirus.
Well, I haven't had many things sent to me apart from, recently I've had an email from one councillor who it was a bogus email of theirs. It had their name on it where it was signed at bottom, but the email wasn't theirs, and I know the person quite well. I think we can probably all guess who it was. I know the person quite well. I know that person doesn't have an email address of such a nature, so I just deleted the damn thing. But it only needs one person to allow it in, and it's in system, isn't it? And they've got your address book, so then they start spamming all emails on your address book then, and away it goes.
That's the thing with this, that everyone has to have it in order for the system to work. Otherwise, it just doesn't. So we couldn't just have
Well, yeah, it's
officers have it and councillors don't, because it
it's
compromises the
It's
system.
like
Yeah.
having a Fort Knox and leaving one door open, isn't it? Unless we all do it, it won't work.
Can I just remind people to use your microphones?
I move the recommendation, plus the extra training, or the demo.
I'll second it with the microphone on.
Those in favour? Right. Town hall room hire.
I think this is a good idea, Mr. Chairman. I think the only questions I have, the paper doesn't answer, is for how long, roughly?
We don't know.
I'd heard rumours of sort of 6 to 12 months or something, but...
Yes.
Yeah, we're not quite sure for how long it will be, basically because it depends on planning permission and how long it takes them to...
How long does it take to get planning permission and build her a new office in Troden, where she's from? I don't know. Well,
No. Well, we think at least up to Christmas.
I mean, are we bothered if it runs till next Easter? I'm not. And everyone's okay with the giving the key for one car parking space as well? Yeah, you're all right with that? Everything? Yep. Fine. All those in favour? Thank you.
Did we get a proposer and a seconder? Or we just...
Yeah. Town hall maintenance, item 13.
Well, yeah, we've been quite busy. I think. We had obviously we've got the main clock back working again and chiming, which is good. We did get this clock done, however, it just seemed to be an hour out now. If that put it at the right time.
Yeah. It'll be right at the end of October.
That's exactly what I'm saying, exactly.
It's a winter clock.
Yeah, so we did look at that, and he also actually got the the little clock in the chambers in the mayor's parlour working as well. So that was another thing. You will also see that we now have a flag flying on top of the town hall. So yeah, we managed to get a contractor in who does actually the services on the flagpole to go up there and reinstall the rope for us, which was a lot cheaper than getting a cherry picker in at silly o'clock in the morning, etc. So we managed to get that back up. My mind's now gone blank.
And we've got the web specialist coming out tomorrow, which will be a case of going up and cherry picker, see what's wrong with it, hard work, and getting that done, and then Gordon's been dealing with the rest of the project. The end office is now complete, the carpet down, ready to hide out. All the normal facility management for about our service is up to date currently.
So are we saying we need another pavement licence?
We've got one sent the permit off, and we've just not picked it up yet, but they said it's fine.
Right. Yeah, I can't see it being a problem. It's just that it's better if we have one, just in case a bucket drops on someone. You know, it's better if everything's legal and in place.
Yeah, asked if we get it sorted and submitted put in place for that, regardless if
Because last one's expired now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Does anyone else any questions? No. Town hall maintenance? No. So, can we note the update and look forward to seeing what's in the update next month? Yeah? Well, yeah. Item 14, Alkin Courts Working Group. Only two of us there, weren't there? I think one thing that the group has to do this summer is the contract runs out next March, and obviously it's not a quick job to go out for such a big tender. In fact, it'll be a lot of tenders. It's not a quick job to go out to tender and get it all sorted out. So by late summer, we're going to have the group look at the current grounds maintenance tender, and there may be things in there that don't require doing. I can't think what, but there may be, and there might be things in there that we think, well, I wish we could have had that done, and I wish we could have had this done, and it needs updating as to what our current requirements are at that group, so that it can come to us, because the tender will go out via us, and then we can decide what we want in the tender, and then Gina can have the tender document, drawn up so that it can go out and for tenders, and then we can get it all back in place, hopefully, before the old contract runs out on 31st of March.
The aim is to do a contract review in the next couple of weeks, just to find out which bits of the contract they may have been struggling with, or just, I think obviously when we originally put the tenders together, it was before we got the park, so we knew there would be things that would have to be amended and changed. I think we probably recognise that there's things that should be done more often than it is, which is in the contract at the moment, and maybe additional works that are required. So
equally, there are a couple of things can come out because the two lensmen can do it now. So there is a bit of juggling about with it, and the tenders had been done, and then we took the park on. So that was sort of tacked onto it as an add-on. It was like a bolt-on sort of thing to it, really. Which actually changed the number of play areas we had, because Alkin Court's play area is within a park, it wasn't transferred with the other play areas. So that's different. There's a difference with the bus shelters because, we've gained one, because there's the one on outside Hartley Homes, bungalows, whatever you want to call them. That's been added to it, and we've lost 9 or 10 that have gone back to county because of this new modern bus shelter scheme. So that needs changing, it's different. And there are lots of things need changing, and it isn't something we can do overnight. So it's doing and throwing at different meetings. It needs starting in midsummer, I think, to start getting it sorted out, and then get the documents drawn up so that we can hopefully get a decent price.
One question on that. What was happening, we discussed a while back about all the walls and the fencing and all that kind of thing. Has that progressed any further?
we have ordered the railings to go round the round the front of the area. We did look at the estate fencing for round the back. Unfortunately, the contractor said it wasn't viable to do it there. So the lensmen have finished doing wooden fencing around that back area. I think they've nearly finished doing it. I think they've done the first layer and they're just on with putting the second one on top to make it taller, I think.
Not viable financially.
Just the way the ground layout
Ground's a
was.
bit like that.
It was too like that, and wouldn't have been viable to do it anyway. So
The was it a compost heap or so? All the rubbish that were rubbish, all the majority of the stuff that was at to the left of the doorway as you got in, the majority of that has it's probably all gone now. When I was up there 2-3 weeks ago, it was virtually gone. So, and the paths leading to it have been improved. Well, they've had chippings and stuff, but they're better than they were, put it that way.
There was one other thing discussed. Better ask Nathan to cover his ears up because he don't know about this yet. The park used to have, it still does have really, but it's dysfunctional, and it became dysfunctional before lockdown, but having the lockdown has not helped towards being able to rejuvenate it, and it did have a friends group. And the idea has been all along to have such as Unique Clean or the contractor to do certain jobs, and possibly to get lensmen to do certain jobs, but also for the friends group, hopefully, to have some sort of working days where they work together as a group and sort of cultivate on whatever you need to do to 2 or 3 flower beds, and then another week or two, and they have another one, and they do a little bit more. And what has been decided is that to try and, we can't seem to get many people interested. We've done all sorts of putting leaflets about and all sorts, and I think in honesty we've got one name, haven't we? Something like that. So it's been suggested and approved by the working group this afternoon that we have an event on the park, possibly on the tennis courts, and that Nathan sort of works with the Bowls Academy and the Pavilion Cafe, and we coordinate, and Eugene, and we coordinate an event for all 3. And it might bring some extra bodies in, people interested in Academy. It might bring some extra trade in, and if they sell a ton of ice cream at Pavilion, all well and good. But we need to use that to try and promote something to get some people interested and have some literature there about the park that they can take away and possibly fill in and say, yes, I would like to help. And I think we ought to get what we can out of that, but I think we need to have that event. When we can use tennis courts if we want, you can do what you want there, Nathan, and you can put the gazebos in tennis courts, you can put a bouncy castle in tennis courts. If it's been a wet week like this week's been, we can still do it because we're not bothered about park being wet, because you'll be on a hard standing in tennis courts. And I think we ought to try and have some sort of a proper event to try and get this friends group revived. And if it helps Academy as well, all well and good. So that was decided as well. Unless this committee is going to say they can't do it, and I don't think they are.
One quick suggestion. I remember the Jubilee last time round, we had the party in the park, didn't we? It was a sort of tea party thing across the Archicoats Park. So if we're doing something on Thursday in the town, it's obviously a 4-day weekend, isn't it, really? So why don't we think about a sort of satellite event or an add-on event or something? And then, as you say, we could call it Friends of Alkincoats Park and pretend like there are lots of friends already, and they're obviously recruiting for a new group of friends and having a party at the same time for the Queen's Jubilee. Just a thought.
Can I suggest, Gina, that you organise getting Nathan and Eugene around a table with Stephen and Darryl from the academy, and they'll talk to Arlene. I think Arlene will go along with whatever we want to do, but they'll talk to Arlene and see if we can get his head round getting something done. Sooner rather than later, and that weekend might be the ideal time to do it. And when I say sooner rather than later, there's no point waiting until autumn again, else we've lost another summer, haven't we? You okay with that?
Yeah, something that we're actually doing already.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
And if we need to use a little bit, dare I say it, a little bit of extra money to try and
Got the extra 10 grand events budget, haven't we?
Well, we
to the
don't
Jubilee.
necessarily need to pinch it out of that, do we?
No. Do it from the Alkincoats budget. Promotion, support, friends group.
Well,
Set up a little cost code for it.
I'm hoping we can get it to work and we can get some people interested in helping us. Because there's one councillor certainly interested in it, because she has contacted me about it several times.
Yeah.
And if we can get it off ground.
I mean, the Ball Grove lot had a tree planting thing just the other week, and you know, they took us a rather sort of depressed part of the car park and then planted these quite mature trees along there, and they had about, we've got 15 people plus going along there, good wide range of ages, etc. So, I think it's a good one to have a go at setting one up. Alkincoats, get it refreshed.
But the thing we could get out of the event is possibly trying to promote getting Friends Group working.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work, well, we'll have to think of something else, won't we? So I don't think there were anything else much, was there?
Not really.
No, I don't think so. Well, yeah. For those of you that go up park frequently, will notice that up the left-hand side of the road going up the outside of the park, up past the play area on the left-hand side, there's some wooden bollards in to stop people going over on the grass. It were for two reasons. If somebody were coming down and somebody were going up, somebody would swerve on grass anyway, and then all your grass would turn up. And people used to go with, well, quad bikes and all sorts of things onto the park anyway. So these wooden ones were put in probably 20 years ago. And they're all rotting away at the line just below ground level, like they do. And they're all crumbling away, and there's about 190 of them. And some of them are broken and need replacing sort of imminently. And they don't last long, because if you have a tree in, the wood don't rot, does it? Because it only rots when it's dead. And you put in a dead tree, aren't you, when you put a piece of wood in? And I asked Eugene, and he thought there were about a dozen needed replacing now. And it's probably an ongoing programme that they'll want replacing frequently until eventually they've all been done. And I made two suggestions. One suggestion was to put trees up there, only about 6 foot apart, similar to the trees that are down the railings down the side of Boundary Mill, which was one solution. Or I said if we wanted to put bollards in, perhaps we could put some, say, 3-inch steel pipe in, hollow pipe, shove it in, leave about that much stuck up like the bollards are, and then just fill them with concrete, because they will last a lot longer than a wooden one. And it's which way to go forward with that.
My gut reaction is trees, because they can be slightly further apart, can't they? How far apart are the bollards? Say 6 feet.
Well,
or them?
they're fairly big, but no, apart.
Oh, no,
no,
how far
they're
apart?
quite a way apart. In fact, in some
right,
places
right.
you could, if you wanted, if you wanted to be sneaky, you could probably get a car through between some of them.
Yeah. Our joiner swears by a Koya. That lasts forever, he says.
So what is the solution? It'd be better having something that'll cost a bit more now, but in future would be lower maintenance.
I think an avenue of trees would be glorious. If you get
Well-
it in by June, you can call it the Queen's
Well,
Passageway.
are there any trees still going anywhere for a tree planting scheme?
I bet there are.
Well,
Woodland Trust, all that sort of people, they were doing deals with things.
can somebody have a search round to see if there is anything?
Yeah.
Because I'd rather pay a bit more for something now to replace it. You could have a rolling programme to replace them as and when they needed it, but if you put something in that will possibly cost twice as much and lasts 4 times as long, at the end of the day, somebody's going to save some money, aren't they?
If you have a chat with Phil Riley, who's the Green Spaces person at Pendle, then I know he's been involved in a few campaigns to plant trees, the 4,000 trees or however many it is across Pendle, and he might have a preferred supplier or suppliers. And I think as well, if you could try and do it, as I say, you could almost host it as a friends of group as well. Come along and do some tree planting in your favourite park. Yeah. So you could promote that and do an earlier one before the...
Unless it's an ash or something like that, a tree doesn't usually rot when it's still alive, does it? It's the dead wood that rots.
Yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Would you want to contact the guy from Pendle then?
Should we approve an up to budget, you think? In order to not wait 4 weeks? Because if you contact Phil tomorrow and he says, go for this
Well, I haven't a
person,
clue how much the
then
trees
you get
will
prices
cost,
for
have
6
you?
footers.
I mean, it's from where Flagpole is to where Barrier is, near where house is, Arbenor, really, where it needs doing, isn't it? It's up that stretch.
Yeah, but they're not all. How many actually are?
Well, you don't need them in top section, because top section, there's flower beds with bushes in, so they aren't going to drive through there anyway.
Is it all the ones? All the ones want replacing, or just some?
They're just some all over the place, but if you're going to do a stretch of it, I think you're better doing a full stretch of it rather than just put a tree where a bollard drops out. Else you'll be forever keep buying another tree, won't you, when another goes. I'd do a section of it if you're going to do that. If you're going to put metal ones in, you can put them in as and when.
Yeah, but they'd end up looking.
Well, you'd have to paint them frequently, wouldn't you?
They'd end up looking rusty and horrible.
Yeah, you'd have to keep painting them, yeah.
You might as well
put some trees in.
Put some trees in.
Yeah. And that's another environmentally friendly thing as well. So I don't know how much they cost.
Well, depending on the size, you're talking 200 or 300 quid a tree, aren't you?
Well, the Ball Grow ones I mentioned, they were 21 feet tall apparently, and they got 15 of them for about £100 each.
Oh, well.
So,
yeah.
And I know when the Co-Youth Action Group planted the Byron Road Centre, you know, on that mount.
Yeah.
Have we any money?
How many we bought?
Gina?
That cost us something like £1,300 or £1,400 for all those men.
Are they all still there?
Yeah, they are. One lens a bit earlier on.
Not that winged.
How much do you need for it? It's 10 grand, 15.
There's bolts, I think. Somebody got it slightly wrong with the wing down the far end.
Can we approve 15 grand, and if he wants any more money, he'll have to come back to us?
15 grand?
Good.
Well, we don't want him.
No, yeah.
It's no good saying 2 quid, is it?
No.
15 grand. If you say it's 100 quid maximum per tree, how buys 150
Trees, which is.
Yeah.
Is that enough? Do both sides?
We don't need to do
No,
both
you
sides.
can't.
It'd look better done on one side.
There's the hedge and all that, yeah, 15 grand,
Because
yeah.
now they've grown, them down by Boundary Mill look pretty good, don't they,
Yeah,
behind them
so-
railings?
yeah, no, I was-
And I think it'd look ideal up that side.
Yeah, you might not need 150, but there's no, there are quite a few, there are quite a few further up that are looking a bit sad, aren't they? Of the bigger tree, there's got to be some replanting at some point.
Up to 15 grand and we'll take it out of the outturn.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Then we're not pinching someone else's budget. We'll take it out at an outturn.
That costs us 1,400.
So you're looking 100 quid a tree-ish, aren't you? Yeah, yeah. So we'll do that. Right.
The various trees and
Items for next month's agenda. Oh, we didn't vote on that, did we? Well, we have now, we've voted on it. Items for next month's agenda. I've nothing special.
How about if we've been talking about electric vehicles and planting trees and that kind of thing, why don't we do a sort of green audit or climate change review of what we've got and what opportunities we might have? Is the community centre's got solar panels on, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, are there any other opportunities? We spoke to someone the other day, and he said all this stuff about wind turbines. He said you know you can get a wind turbine that's only sort of 4 feet tall. You don't have to have a massive, great big one. So you pick your windy spot, do a small one. You never know. So there might be opportunities for additional green, climatey investment.
There is something that I wanted to try and do, if we can in future, is if we ever get the town hall roof done, I don't know whether many of you know what the roof's like here, but it's a bit peculiar really, because it slopes up on the outsides and then it comes down on the insides, and the same back and front.
Okay.
So there's like a big square in the middle with 4 sloping sides down onto it, which is like a big well in middle.
That nobody can see.
Exactly. Now it is a listed building, so there's no way on the slates at the front or the sides where it shows you would get to put some solar panels.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they could be lenient towards us and allow us to put them on the inside slopes where, unless you go up down Old Clock and look out at window from top of the tower, you're not going to see them.
Yep.
So I've always said I would like to see some solar panels go on there, because if you put them on all 4 faces, as the sun comes up in morning and goes all the way around in a circle, you'll be getting them on one lot of panels, or the sun on one. Well, you'll probably get it on 2 lots of panels all day, won't you?
Yeah.
And I think it's worth investing in that up there, but it is something for the future, because there's no point considering it and doing it before we've had roof repaired.
No, indeed.
But I think it wants flagging up to be done at some point, yeah.
Yeah.
So